I'm not sure why it's taken me this long to discover this feature in FabFilter Pro Q3, or why I haven't seen more videos on it being used. Because this FabFilter hack isn't only going to stop you from having to buy other expensive plugins like these ones, but it's also going to help your production and mixes sound professional and louder. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Fabio here from Noise at Boombox, the home of collaboration. If you're a producer and musician like me and you hate Dropbox, well, I've got another option. Boombox.io is the home of collaboration for musicians. You can share and store your files like any other cloud storage provider, leave timestamp feedback as text or voice notes, create professional looking playlists, and have access to an incredible artist network where you can search for your next collaborator, whether they're a musician, engineer, or vocalist. You can sign up today for free, link is in the description below, and you get 4 gigabytes of storage space. What are you waiting for? Well, actually, Fabio, I think we're waiting for you to show us how to use this hack in Pro Q3. Let's get to it. First of all, I want to say thank you to Deemie, one of my clients, for letting us use his track. I'm going to play you a quick snippet of what we'll be working on today.
Take that ass up till you can't no more. Go!
So here we have a massive EDM track with lots of parts fighting for space. Unfortunately, what that means is it can be difficult for the listener to focus on those dominant parts. And we're going to use the FabFilter Pro Q3 in a very clever way, which I've never used before, but I just realized that this feature existed. The two main parts that are fighting for space are this lead and this big horn impact that comes in every so often. What I want to happen is when the horns play, for the lead to duck a little bit out of the way to create space for the horns to have that impact. Now on the horns, I have a Pro Q3 with a low cut, and then I'm boosting at 400 and 2000 to bring out some of the warmth and the presence of this sound. Now I did make these adjustments when I was listening to everything in context in the mix. Obviously soloed, it just sounds like it's getting a little bit louder. But here's where the magic happens. If I play back the lead, you can see on the frequency spectrum analyzer how much space it's taking up frequency-wise. Check it out. Now we already know from having boosted the horns or the trumpets around here and here that that's where we want them to feel most dominant. So I'm going to match that. I'm going to go to 419 and we were at about 2100. Now let's take another look at the frequency spectrum analyzer and you'll see that on the lead, these areas are actually quite busy. Now the horns are fighting for space in those areas. So what we want to do next is actually quite clever. I'm going to feed in my horns via the side chain here. I'm going to go to audio and then scroll down to trumpet. Now this isn't doing anything yet, but I'm going to turn these two EQ points into dynamic EQs. Right now, they're facing the wrong way. We actually want them coming down. So let's zero out the gain because we don't want to boost the lead. We'll do this for both of them. And then we want the dynamic EQ to be going downwards. So right now, when it's above, it's expanding the signal. It's making it louder. We want downward compression. So we want the volume to duck. I'm going to start by selecting the frequency point at 400 Hertz. I'm going to go to auto. And then here, this tiny, tiny little button, I don't know why they made it so small, allows us to use the sidechain signal as a trigger. So when I turn this on, what this means is this dynamic EQ is not reacting to the lead synthesizer, it's actually reacting to the trumpets. I'm going to do exactly the same for my frequency point up here. Click on auto and then click on the side chain button there. We can decide how much of the dynamic EQ is reacting to the side chain input signal with these threshold sliders, and there's 1, for each of these EQ points. Let's play it back so we can see and hear the horns triggering the dynamic EQ. You can hear the lead momentarily ducking in volume when those horns play. Now let's play it with the horns so you can hear the difference in balance. Now this sounds good, but I do think we're overdoing the dynamic EQ a little bit. So what we can do is go into these different EQ points and just reduce the threshold ever so slightly to taste. Just by adding these two dynamic EQs, which are being triggered by those trumpets, we make so much more space, and in context, it's not going to sound as obvious. Let's do a quick before and after. The idea is to get this to sound as natural as possible. Now, you don't just have to do this with two lead synthesizers. This could also be used on rhythm guitar, lead guitar, plucks and pads, lead vocals and backing vocals, and so on and so forth. Let's check it out in context. Notice how when it's bypassed, they kind of get lost in the source. So if you have FabFilter Pro Q3, this is definitely worth trying out. And if you already have those other plugins that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that doesn't mean that they aren't useful. It just means that if you don't have them, there is another option available in this plugin right here. And before we go, don't forget that these videos are possible because of Boombox. If you hate Dropbox, Google Drive, and SoundCloud, well then this is the platform for you. Boombox is entirely designed for musicians by musicians. Don't forget that you can leave timestamp feedback as text or voice notes. You can share files with different levels of access and permissions. And we have an amazing artist network page where you can find your next collaborator and maybe make that next big hit. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure as always. Welcome to Boombox, the home of collaboration. I'll see you very soon. Peace.